Hello traders, my name is Karim and I'm a community ambassador at HaasOnline. Today we will be making your first trading bot. This video is specifically for beginners, so don't worry if you don't have any experience with programming, because HaasScript was designed so that any trader could turn their strategy into an automated bot, even if they never wrote a single line of code before. So let's get started. In HaasScript there are two ways to create bots. There is the visual editor, which is sort of like Lego building blocks, and script editor, which is text-based. If you already have some programming experience, you will probably find script editor to be more convenient. But if you are completely new to programming, then visual editor will be a smoother learning curve. Each one has their own pros and cons, and in this video we will make a script in visual editor and then recreate it in script editor in the next video. But first let me take a moment to show you how you can use this and other features for free. Just go to HaasOnline.com, click Products, TradeServer Cloud, create a free account, and register to get your light license. It includes one bot with which you can test and trade your strategies. Alright, let's start. So we'll click on Web Editor and then create new script. Tick Visual Script and give it a name. Let's name it First Script and click Save. So here on the left you can see a bunch of settings. You can select the account, the market, you can choose trading amount, and so on. If you have traded on an exchange before, which probably everyone watching this video has, then this is self-explanatory, so let's skip to the actual scripting part. On this tab called Commands, we can find the building blocks for our bot. By the way, in this context, a bot and a script are the same thing, so I may use those interchangeably. First of all, let's write down the rules of our trading system. We can add a comment box. In this search field, just type what you think the command might be called, and 90% of the time you will find what you need right away. So this is a comment box. It doesn't do anything except just sit here and display some information. Here you can write the description of your script or keep a journal of ideas and observations while you're developing your bot. Let's write our trading rules here so we can use them as a reference later. So let's talk about our logic or rule set. There are tons of strategies and usually the good ones are rather complex, but to demonstrate how to turn a strategy into an actual trading bot, we'll use some simple rule set with EMA and RSI here. This way we can easily see if our bot is working correctly, since both of those indicators are pretty straightforward. Let's look at the chart to see how our bot should work. We can go to Market View, open a good pair that is not too volatile, for example Bitcoin USD or ETH/USD. Then we'll add indicators, an RSI and two EMAs. Make one of them short with a period of 6. Now it looks almost the same as the price, except it smoothes out the random spikes. Now let's make a long EMA with the period of, for example, 24. Let's set RSI period to standard 14. There's a common tactic in many trend-based strategies to buy when the short EMA crosses above the long EMA, as this signals an uptrend in the current time frame. Looking at the graph, it makes sense. We can catch these nice uptrends and downtrends after an EMA cross. So when the short EMA goes under the long EMA, we will sell, or go short, and vice versa for buying. However, the issue here is that it would lose money in these seesaw patterns, where the price is consolidating, not moving anywhere, and the long and short EMAs get very close to each other. So they will cross multiple times without any actual trend. Here you can see the price is barely moving, but the EMAs are crossing multiple times. Not even mentioning the losses from buying higher than selling, just the fact that we are paying the fees here for these trades is already adding up and hurting our ROI. When we are trading with a trend, we are losing capital due to false signals when there is no trend. So one way to alleviate this issue is to try and filter out these bad signals when the price is not going anywhere. We can see that usually this price movement occurs when the RSI is around the middle, not oversold or overbought. I'd say these seesaw patterns are happening probably between around 35 and 65 RSI. So this is a good place to start with our strategy. Alright, let's go back to creating the actual bot. We will type these rules in the comment box. We will enter long when the price starts rising, meaning the short EMA goes above or crosses over the long EMA. But to filter out the weak seesaw signals, a strong upward movement is required, so RSI should jump above 65 before we enter. Let's also copy the same rules in reverse for enter short. When the RSI is below 35 and EMA 6 crosses under the EMA 24, we will go short. For exits, we will just use the EMA crossing back. So if we are in a long position, we will exit when EMA 6 crosses under EMA 24. If we are in the short position and we want to exit it, we will use the signal when EMA 6 crosses over EMA 24, regardless what RSI is. So to summarize, we will enter our position on the current up or down trend that is also confirmed by RSI to be a strong move. With these rules written out, let's actually start adding the comments. You can find 90% of comments just by searching for what you think it would be called. So you can just start with RSI. Type it in the search field and then just click on it. Next is EMA. We need 2 of those. Looking at our rules, we need a comment to go long and go short. We will use the optimize do long and do short comments for that. They are very user-friendly. We also have to add exit position comments. Alright, so we got our main components now. Let's think about how to make them all work together. First of all, we need to set the settings of the indicators to proper values. One of the EMAs will have a period of 6 and another of 24. There is a little dot here that says period next to it. So we need to give it the period value. In general, the dots on the left are inputs and the ones on the right are outputs. We can also look up the description of the inputs, outputs, and the comment itself by hovering over the small I at the top of the command. If the text is faded, then that input is optional and we can omit it. But for all the dots that have bright text next to them, those are required inputs. We must supply an input to those, otherwise we'll get errors in the log and the bot won't work. So let's start with period. If you aren't sure where you need to connect something, try right-clicking on that point and you'll get some suggestions. For example, period here suggests change to field, input, load, and number. Well, we don't need to load anything, and we already know that we want to set the period to a specific number, so we don't really need input. Alternatively, we could also change it to a field, so let's try that on the second EMA. So right-click on the period, change to field. Now we can just enter the number right there. Let's do the same for RSI and set its period to 14. For all 3 indicators, we also have a required input called prices. So let's right click on it and see what the editor suggests. We got the load and session get. We will see what those do later, we don't need them right now. But the main suggestion list is ask prices, bid prices, high prices, low prices, and so on. We'll use close prices as that's what traditionally all indicators are doing their calculations with. Then we can do the same for other 2 indicators, or we can just connect this close prices block to them. Alright, so we have our indicators set up. Now we need to make the algo itself, the logic chain of when to trigger do long, do short, and do exit position. Based on our rules, we need to have a crossover and cross under. We also need something to test if RSI is below 35 or above 65. In HaasScript, the commands for this are called isBiggerThan and isSmallerThan. So let's add those. Now I just want to show something obvious but important to understand the details of our trading system. So I just want to show the difference between isBiggerThan and crossover. So here we can see that blue or short EMA crosses above or crosses over the orange EMA. At this point there will be a crossover signal. As for isBiggerThan, there will also be this signal here, but it will continue on the next candle as well. isBiggerThan will continue to return true until blue EMA crosses back under the orange EMA. So for our EMA, we will not just look when fast EMA is above the slow EMA, we will specifically look when the fast EMA crosses above the slow EMA. On that candle we will enter. So we will use crossover for the EMAs and isBiggerThan for RSI. The short EMA should be value 1 and long EMA will be value 2. Now let's connect isBiggerThan and isSmallerThan to our RSI. And like we did before, change the second value to a field and enter 65 for bigger than and 35 for smaller than. Actually, maybe we should try using a crossover here too. It's hard to tell which way would be better, so this is something to try once we build the bot. So let's add this to our comment box to test later so we don't forget. Alright, now we are at the center of a puzzle. How do we connect these to replicate our strategy rules? So let's take it step by step. First of all, we need two conditions to be true to enter a long. So right click on the do long input and the first suggestion is AND. This is exactly what we want. We want both RSI to be above 65 and our EMA to cross. We also need an AND command for enter short. Alright, so for the do long part, we need a crossover and is bigger than to be true. So let's connect our AND to those two. For the short part, we need a cross under and is lower than. Then we join our RSI is smaller than 35 and EMA short cross under EMA long in this AND block. Notice how colors are giving us a hint what inputs and outputs should be joined. Orange to orange for true false values, violet to violet for text, and blue is for numbers, like a period of an indicator. Let's ignore the other rules for now and just take a look at the do long. So we have that when RSI is bigger than 65 and EMA 6 crosses EMA 24, then we will enter a long. Makes sense, right? Disable all comments that aren't connected to do long and save and run a small backtest. We can see that it's working, there was a trade, but we don't see the indicators. Let's add plot command so we can see the indicators on our graph. Right click the outputs of the indicators and select plot from the suggestions. It's getting messy here. It would be nice and neat if we could just enter RSI and EMA 6 into the plot inputs, just like we entered the 6 and 24 values into the EMA period fields. Luckily, we can't do that. Let's delete these plot commands for now and these tangling connections. Now right-click on the RSI output and select SessionSet. It's not the most intuitive name, but what it does is it allows us to name different outputs and then use them anywhere without having to drag and drop the arrows across the whole screen. This way we can keep everything neat. So let's name the RSI output as RSI. Then to use this name we can just enter it in the field, but we need to add a pound symbol at the start to indicate that we aren't just giving it some text, but specifically a name of something. So now we can use this name in is bigger than, is smaller than, and in the plot. Let's add it there. Now let's also add session set names for our short and long EMAs. I'll just call them SEMA and LEMA. And also add the plot comments for EMAs. For plot comments, we see that there are two more required inputs that we need to set. First is the chart ID. For EMA plots, we will use chart 0. Chart 0 is the same chart where the price candles are plotted. For RSI, we will use chart 1, which is right under the price chart. Then we must also give align names to the plots so they are specified on the chart. Alright, now let's save and just see how it looks, just with the plots and the do long. We have now trade signals. It's probably because we chose EMA values that are too close to each other. For bigger contrast, let's change long EMA to EMA 48. 48 is just a guess for now. Indicator values should be carefully selected based on lots of testing before setting the bot to trade. Alright, this is probably not the best entry example, but it's working as intended. So great. Now we just need to finish the do short logic, which is very similar to do long. Then we will enable do short, cross under, and is smaller than. Let's make it a bit more organized. Alright, we completed both our long and short entry. All that's left is to add the exits. So for our exits we have opposite conditions. To exit long, we need an EMA cross under, and to exit short, we need an EMA cross over. We already have this, so why not just join them to do the exit position? Well, not so fast. First we need to make the bot know that the position is long, and then cross under would mean exit long. Vice versa for exit short. So we need to get bot's current position. Let's look for it in the comments. Get position direction is what we need. Let's add that. It has a faded input, so let's not worry about it. Since we are trading only one position at a time, we don't need to specify position ID. Looking at the output description, we can see that this returns position long, position short, or no position. Right-clicking the output, we can find useful suggestion, equals, so we can check if the position output is equal to long and position long block 2. So let's add position long, position short, and 2 equals. Alternatively, we could just find it in the search bar in the comments here on the left. But 90% of the time you'll find what you need just by right-clicking on an input or output. When get position direction equals to position long, then we need another AND to also add the EMA cross under condition. Then we exit position. Let's also fix the exit short side the same way. When get position direction equals to position short and EMA is crossover, then we exit position. We can drag the canvas using right mouse button. We can't connect two inputs to the exit position, so we can either add another exit position, or we could just connect the two AND blocks with an OR block. This way, if one of these is true, then the do exit position block will get activated. And that's it. Let's now save and test our bot. We have buys and sells, but I don't see any exit position. I think we are on a spot market. Let's change it to some leverage market, for example, to BitMEX. And let's set our graph to something more realistic, for example, 5 minutes. So we have a couple of problems. First of all, for some reason we have go long, and right after that we have exit long. I think I mixed up the conditions for exit long and exit short. Let's see. Yep. Note how crossover leads to a do long, and also if there is a crossover while the get position direction equals to position long, then it leads to exit position. So once it gets in the long position, that same crossover is trying to exit the new position. We can just swap the position long and position short blocks. Okay, great, it's working as intended, and in the backtest we got a nice short. So if you followed along until the end, you can pat yourself on the back. You've officially created, or at least know how to create, your first trading bot. You have learned how to use Visual Editor, how to look for comments that you need, and learned how to add some logic tests like AND block, OR block to test and add different conditions. To recap some key tips, probably the best way to start a script is to just find key comments that you will need in the search box here and drop them and then connect them. Right-click the input or output to get suggested commands. We can also change an input to a field where we can type. We can use SessionSet to save some outputs with a name and then use it later in some field. When using a variable name, use pound at the start to indicate that it's a name of a variable. We can drag the canvas using right mouse button. Lastly, we can read the info about any command and its inputs and outputs by hovering over the small eye in the corner. And that's it. In this video we covered how to make a script in Visual Editor. But if you're more comfortable typing out things, maybe you will like more conventional coding, we will rebuild this same script in Script Editor in the next video. Happy trading!